y'all, it is Hope at Crafty Hope, and I am continuing to share with y'all my process for creating my ICADs for this year, for 2019. Now, ICAD is over. It does stand for Index Card a Day, and it is done by Daisy Yellow, who is Tammy Garcia, and I have information about ICAD below in the description box, but feel free to ask me any questions. Now, Tammy gives us prompts each day, and I have been doing the best I can to work with these prompts, and I am sharing with you cards 43, 44, and 45. And 43 here that I have already started on is the prompt of direction. That's what it is. Woo! And I had a general idea of what I wanted to do. I had at least one thing I knew I wanted to incorporate in this. So I started by using my Uhu glue stick to glue down a piece of some kind of book paper. It may have come from a map, actually. An index, what do you call it? An atlas. Oh, an atlas. So a piece of an index from an atlas, I think, maybe, onto the card. And then I used a palette knife to put a little gesso down and just kind of scraping that across the card. And then I used my brayer to put a little green down. And I've taken a Neo Color 2, it's a watercolor crayon, to just scribble a little bit across the top. Now, since that is a watercolor crayon, it is water soluble, and I've got a wet paintbrush, so I'm just kind of going across it. Now, this is another type of watercolor crayon. It's a Colorix, I believe, and it's just this beautiful mustard yellow, and I am just coloring that in right underneath the scribbles I had there from the Neo Color and rubbing it. It's nice and soft, so it kind of spreads like a pastel or something. And then I've got, over on my left here are my hand carved stamps, and I knew I had like an arrow stamp in there, and I thought that'd be perfect for the prompt of direction. So I'm just using a little bit of, I think that stays on in black, to go across the bottom of my card below some of the other elements. And then I've got a distressed oxide in an orange spice marmalade, maybe, and another hand carved stamp. I think it's just a spiral that I put around the bottom and the top of this card. And then I've got a little bit of some kind of black spray. I'm not even sure what brand of spray that was. Just black. That's all I know. I think maybe Heidi Swapp. And I just sprayed a couple little spritzes there to kind of echo that black that's running across the bottom. Now, this is the element that I knew I was going to include in here, and it's one of the direction arrows, the north, south, east, west direction arrows from a map. And I think that was actually from the London map that I had used in my tourist map card. Maybe I'll link that so you can see it. So I went through my Tim Holtz chipboard quotes, I think they're called, and found this one that says embrace the journey, and I thought that was perfect for a directional thing. So because if you're, I don't know, you're definitely journeying if you're worried about direction. So I stuck that down. Well, I stuck the little compass symbol down with my Uhu glue stick, and then use some matte gel medium to stick down the embrace the journey. And that's it for this card. It came together. It just flew by. I don't even know. Just threw some stuff at it and it stuck. Let me preface card number 44 with saying that this is probably my least favorite of all of the ICADs I made for 2019 so far. Well, it's over, and I just don't like this card. I don't know why. The prompt was pool, and I have a pool, and I love my pool, and we have lots of people come and get in our pool, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, was have a pool with some people having a good time. So I started by just painting my card in different shades of blue to kind of give that wavy, rippley effect that a pool has. And so I used two kind of aquas, and then some of that color shift aqua greeny color to give it a little reflection to it. And then I've got these images of women that were in like a Vogue magazine. Not all of them are swimsuits. One of them isn't a swimsuit. The other two, I think, are celebrities. You might recognize them, that had tops that look like they could be bathing suits. So I'm kind of cutting below their bust line to kind of make it look like they're just standing around, waiting around in a pool. So those are going down. You see, I'm kind of figuring out the placement of them. And then I've got a hand carved stamp that I carved during Carve December, and it's of what looks like a splash or something. So I'm using Distress Oxide in a blue. I can't think of the color. Never can I? And I'm just putting that in a couple places behind because I wanted to have the splashes down before I put my swimming ladies down. And so I put them down just with my Uhu glue stick because, again, it's paper to paper, so it works fine. And then I'm going to take a little bit more of some of my blue paints and put it kind of underneath them. I don't like that straight line that's underneath them. It's like too straight, whereas a pool, the water in a pool would be kind of ripply and all that. So I'm kind of trying to get rid of that line. And I don't do a great job. I don't know if it was just because it's just craft acrylic paint. Or if it's just, I don't know, if I just don't have the technique down. But anyway, I spent a lot of time working on this, trying to get the colors to kind of blend and, I don't know, look more like a pool. Like I said, this is, I don't know. I don't know if it's the magazine images. I've had a hard time incorporating magazine images in my art. There's something about the shininess of it that I just don't like, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you now that I make up for this card in the next card, so please hang in there. So I'm adding, like I said, all of these different colors, trying to get them to kind of blend and flow together and be liquidy awesome like a pool is, but I just struggle. I struggle a lot with it. Trying different brushes. I've tried everything. So I decided to go ahead and add a couple more splashes in there to, now that I think I've got it close. And then I've got this light blue pen that I'm just adding a couple little ripples on the water there to, I don't know, make it feel like it's moving around. If somebody's in the water, there will be ripples around them. So I was kind of putting that in there. And then I'm going to stare at it some more. Yeah, there's me just dumbfounded. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my small talk stickers from Tim Holtz. I think these are the snarky ones because what I immediately see is I'd like to announce that I have no idea what I'm doing because I knew I didn't like this card. And so I'm inking around the edges of it because I was just done. I was done. I was going to frame it up and call it a day. The last card in this set is card 45, and the theme is Wabi Sabi. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I love Wabi Sabi. It is one of my favorite aesthetics. If you don't know what it is a Japanese, I guess, aesthetic that appreciates the art of like death and dying and decay. And it's not about death. It's about letting things go and letting things kind of, I don't know, it's like the way things rust and as moss growing on trees and things like that. Just things are going to age and decay, and I don't know. It's just the beauty of that, and I really appreciate that. So I started with a bunch of scrap paper because those are things that are, I guess, been used. They're old. They were just sitting on my desk, and I collaged all those down using my Uhu glue stick, just what was ever there, and had been used before. One of those pieces you see has a big old splot of paint on it, so I went with it. Then I took my, what is that, walnut stain Distress Oxide and just kind of, I don't know, splotched it all over the page, and then used a really wet paintbrush and a kind of a big one to kind of smear that around and give it that kind of yellowed old look. Now this is a Ranger crackle paste that, like some of my other supplies, I don't use as much as I'd like to or should. So this is another lesson for me to use my supplies before they get old. And so I'm just using a palette knife and spreading it out across my page. And you know what? It kind of fits with the Wabi Sabi theme to have something that's kind of old, and I'm going to still use it. So I had this piece of like cotton cord that I just cut a couple pieces off of, and I'm sticking it straight into that crackle paste. And that's what's going to hold it on, is just being in that crackle paste. And then I left it to dry. Crackle paste does a lot better. You get better cracks if you leave it to air dry rather than heat dry it. So I let it do that and came back, and it was beautifully crackled just the way I like. And then I've got some of that, what is that, nickel, quinacridone, azo gold, I guess is what it's called. I add a little water too. And I love this color. Love, 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 love this color because it looks like rust. And that's kind of, what I was going for. Like I said, wabi-sabi, oxidizing of things is definitely on that list of wabi-sabi. So I'm splattering that and spreading it around and making sure I get it on some of those threads too, so that they're not just there without a touch of age on them. And I hate that I wiped that up. I really should have taken a piece of some other paper and put that paint on, that excess paint on there. I get better about that because it seems such a waste. So I've pulled out some of my smaller paper dolls from Tim Holtz, and I knew I wanted, well, let's just say it's somebody that was older. Right? There's a lot of children in that mix, and so I was looking for somebody or a group of somebodies that were a little advanced in age. Now these ladies that I picked out are not like old, but they're not children. So that's what I picked. And then I needed a little more texture. Used one of my handcraft stamps with some of the black soot distress oxide to add some texture. And I decided to go ahead and dry the golden fluid acrylic that was on there before I did anything else, before I got paint on everything else, which wouldn't have been a bad thing for this prompt, but wasn't what I wanted. So I was trying to figure out what I also wanted to add, and it's a sleeve of a t-shirt that I use is just a mop-up rag a lot, and I cut a little piece off of it. Now if you see when I picked it up, there was a little bit of thread in it, I think came off of some like canvas or something I had cut before, and I put that aside, and it's going to work its way in here. So I am trying to figure out, because I knew I wanted something behind the ladies to kind of pop them up. So I get my little square of that. It's not even square, it's just a little scrap piece of that stuff. And I'm going to use some matte medium or gel medium to glue that down, and then glue the ladies down because they're kind of thick, and gluing onto that fabric was, I knew, needed something heavier than my Uhu. So I got those glued down, and then I'm trying to find a little scrap of paper. Again, I'm using papers that were already on my desk because I'm trying to keep that wabi-sabi theme, and I have an old piece of a letter or something that I kind of just tore and frayed the edges some, and I'm going to just handwrite better with age, because as we all know, some things are just better with age, and that's kind of the theme of wabi-sabi. And so I've got that little thread that I had pulled off a minute ago, and I know I want to put it behind my better with age saying. So I'm, kind of trying it out all over the place on that little bitty card. And then use some more of that gel medium to stick down the thread. And I start to stick it onto the back of the paper I had written, but realized I needed to age that a little bit. So I used the walnut stain again to go around the outside of that and give it some age, and then went ahead and put that gel medium on the back of that and stuck it down. And I love this card so much. So much is yes, I love it. And I did ink up the edges with some of that more of that distress oxide, and that was it. Guys, if y'all like this, please give me a thumbs up. I know number 2 on this one wasn't great, but the other 2 were pretty awesome. And make sure you subscribe and come back again. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.